That's how we do it this morning. Just like heaven, when you walk into the room, there's not a thing that's hidden. When every eye is on you, can't get enough of your presence. It's the perfect point of view. Isn't it just like, just like heaven? Prince of Peace came bursting through the wind. The violent sky held its breath, and in your light I found rest. Tearing through the night, riding on the storm, staring down the fire. My eyes found yours, shining like the sun, striding through my fear. The Prince of Peace met me there. You heard my prayer. Hold like the sunlight piercing through the dark. The Prince of Peace came and broke into my heart. The violent cross, the empty grave, and in your light I found grace. Tearing through the night, riding on the storm, staring down the valley. My eyes found yours, so will ever know that you are God. And you heard my prayer. Let's give him praise one more time this morning. Suncoast, thank y'all so much for singing with us. You may be seated.
Morning, Suncoast. Merry Christmas to you. You guys are probably in knee-deep hustle bustle of this holiday season, but we're glad you're here, that you carved out some time to be with us. My name's Dr. Troy Doucet. I'm one of the teaching pastors here. So whether you're live in person or watching one of our live streams online, thanks for joining us. We are in Christmas mode around here, and we're doing a Christmas sort of Advent teaching series called The Heart of Christmas. And if you were here last week or if you joined in online, Dr. Bacham and I were talking about this radical idea called hope. And one of the most important things that came out of last week was this idea that hope is trusting that when my life feels like it's down to nothing, that God is still up to something. Hope is the fuel that drives my trust in God. I may not know what the future holds, but I trust the one who holds my future. Hope is knowing that however sad my situation, however critical my condition, however lost my life may seem at this moment, I'm not buried in this mess. I'm planted in it, and my pain can have purpose if I hold on to hope. Now today we're shifting gears to another theme that's sort of situated in the Christmas story, and it's this idea of peace. Peace. Now I know you may have your ideas or definitions or concepts of peace, but for me, there's this hotly debated topic in my family. My wife and I go at it like dogs and cats, and it's this question: when is it too early to play Christmas music? Like, that's the real question, right? Like, I love it, man. There is just something about hearing Nat King Cole. You guys know what I'm talking about. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. It could be July. I'm sitting at Siesta Beach, and that song may just come on my playlist inadvertently. And immediately I feel nostalgic. Immediately I want hot chocolate. I feel peace, tranquility, right? Anybody like looking at Christmas lights? Any guys like, oh man, that's my favorite. Back in Dallas, we take our kids to this area, there's a little neighborhood called Deerfield. Their HOA requires them to put Christmas lights up every year, and it's awesome. I hate HOAs except at Christmas, especially the ones that mandate Christmas lights. And you're driving around, you got your hot chocolate in your hand. I got my arm around my beautiful wife. My kids are in the back seat. Christmas music is playing. And there's this overwhelming sense that everything is peaceful and right in the world. But yet we know that everything is not right in our world. Famine, disease, hunger, war, greed, poverty, slavery, injustice abounds. Many times it's chaos, not peace, that surrounds us at any given time. And I know it may be hard sometimes, especially in our little corner of Southwest Florida, Sarasota, beautiful, one of the most sought after places to live. Like, a lot of times it doesn't get real chaotic in terms of famine and war around here. But I love what Rob Bell, the author, Rob Bell, he's one of my favorites. This is what he said. Oftentimes, the Christian's greatest sin is believing that our world is the world. And if you looked up online at Noah Webster's dictionary, the definition of peace, here's what it'll say. Peace is freedom from disturbance, tranquility, a state in which there is no war or war has ended. But what is peace as it relates to the story of Christmas and the life of Jesus? Well, let's look at it. This prophet named Isaiah in the Old Testament, 700 years before Jesus was born, prophesied that he would come to earth to bring us a new understanding of God, and in that, a new understanding of peace. Here's what Isaiah said. Isaiah 9, it says, "For unto us a child is born, and to us a son is given. And the government," that word government doesn't mean like a U.S. government, it means like the power, authority of the world, "will be put upon his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of" what? Peace. Prince of Peace. Yet this idea that is bespoken of Jesus 700 years before he's even born, and the notions of peace that Jesus teaches about are absolutely incongruent with Mr. Noah Webster's understanding and definition of peace. Why? Because it remains strange to us, as we'll see in this teaching today. And not only is it strange to us who are 2,000 years removed from Jesus, it was strange to the people who lived closest to him and understood the language and the culture of his time. Jesus' understanding of peace was fundamentally grounded in a word in Hebrew for peace named shalom. I want you to say that. Say shalom. Shalom. Now, we'll get to what shalom means in the next few hours in this teaching, so just hold on. We'll get there. No, I'm just kidding. Listen to what Jesus tells his followers about this type of peace that he wants to bring. John 16, it says this, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. Because in this world you will have trouble," or chaos, "but take heart, for I have overcome," or the true word should be conquered. "I have conquered that world that is full of trouble." So Jesus gives us a promise of peace that's rooted, that's grounded in who he is. If you're taking notes today, here's point number one I want to make about peace. Peace is this. Peace is not the absence of chaos around you. It is the presence of Christ within you. That is a strong truth I want to drive home today. So buckle up, Suncoast. Here we go. Genesis chapter 1, the first book in the Bible. What does it say? "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Who created it? God did. No one else. Nothing else. And it says this, "And the earth was," that God created, "was formless and void." The Hebrew word there is tohu vavohu. It gives me pleasure to say that. I don't know why. Tohu vavohu. That literally translates that the earth God created was tohu vavohu, was chaos. It was chaotic. And it says this, "And there was darkness over the face of the chaos." What is a byproduct of chaos? Confusion. That's what that word darkness in Hebrew can translate to. This idea of it was chaotic and confusion. And look what it says. "But then God's Spirit hovered over the chaotic waters." That word hovered is so freaking awesome. It's this word rahaf. Rahaf. And you know what it means? God didn't remove the chaos. He relaxed it. That's such an awesome picture. Anybody ever been to a masseuse before? Oh, I love it. After you work out, you lift a lot of weights and your muscles are tight. What does that masseuse do? Relaxes that muscle, right? Drives in their fingers into loosening it up. But the muscle still remains tight. You'll still be sore, but it's relaxed. And look what it says. God relaxes the chaos, doesn't remove it, and then he turns and he says, "Let there be light." What is he talking about? What's light? The sun? No, the sun's not made until day 4. This light was this idea of structure and order, the relaxing of the chaos. Light represents that. Let me give you a kind of an example. Let's say my buddy Elon Musk gave me a check for $1 million. And he says, Troy, I'm not gonna make this check out to anyone. I want you to give it to whoever. And I was like, I wanna play a game with my friends at Suncoast. And I had that check in an envelope. And I said, it's hidden somewhere in this auditorium. And I'm gonna kill all the lights. And when the lights go black, there's no light in here. The first person to find that envelope with the $1 million check, I'm gonna write it out to you. Go, and the lights go off. What would happen? Chaos. Man, you'd be tripping over our camera people. You'd be tripping over Pastor Brett, chairs, each other, looking for that. Some of you are like, I don't really need that $1 million. Get out of my way. I need it. Like, I'm kicking people. But here's the thing, even if I crank the lights back on, there still would be chaos, a more relaxed chaos, because now you still can see each other, but it still would be pandemonium as you're looking for that check. That's the idea here. While chaos gives us this picture of like devastation, I don't think God sees it that way, because this is the idea. Light representing order and structure, rationality. God shows us this in the midst of chaos, not apart from it. He never separates it. We do. In fact, God says over and over again, it was good, and God did this, and it was good, and God did this, and it was good. When's the one time, Pastor Brett, that God did not say it was good? When the light and the dark were separated. It's the only time. But while order and clarity and rationality are good in our life, absolutely, sometimes we get arrogant about it. You ever been right about something and you knew you were right? Yeah, I hate those people. No, I'm just picking. I like to debate. But here's the thing. The same sun that gives us light so we can see can also blind you. The same sun that causes fruit and vegetation to grow to sustain life can cause you to dehydrate. And the same sun that gives life to all of the earth can kill you if you get too much of it. How's that? Listen to what David says in Psalm 139. This is an amazing verse. It says this, darkness is not dark for you, O God, and night shines as bright as the day. Darkness and light are one. Don't be mad at me. I didn't write it. That shows God is God for a reason, and I'm not for that very same reason. There are things that he understands. This has been the biggest problem for Christianity and this awful idea of original sin. You know what it says? Is that you were born in darkness, and God has to take light from over here and put it into you here. You're removed from it. That's awful. You were born a dirty, rotten sinner, and you need God to come from some other place to this place in order to replace what he has already placed in you? That's ridiculous. No, no, no. God's presence is everywhere. God dwells everywhere, even in darkness, even in chaos, even in confusion. God's light dwells in you right now. Here's what Jesus says in Matthew 5, if you don't believe me. Let your light shine before men, so they can see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Where did Jesus say the kingdom of heaven was? In you. But I like to read this verse like to really just tick people off. Let your light shine before men, even if they know your dark side. Let your light shine before men, even if they know what you've done in your past. Let your light shine regardless of what or who knows anything about you that you may regret or not be proud of. Jesus says, darkness cannot overcome the light, no matter how dark it is, and they dwell together. And we know this to be true. Let your light shine, even when people know the dark side you have. That's peace. Point number 2, if you're taking notes, is this. It's going to be impossible for anyone to experience peace when you're expecting perfection. Here's the problem. We're human, just like the people who followed Jesus back in the day. They are human, and they wanted God to bring about this perfect peace. No disruption, no order, no chaos. They, like us today, wanted God to make everything perfect. They wanted their war-torn country, their people who were being oppressed by the Romans. They wanted all their problems absolutely removed. But listen to what Jesus says in John 14. The peace I leave with you is not a peace that the world gives. So don't let your hearts be troubled. Here's what I want to say. Jesus gives you peace so you can live it. But here's if you got to write this down. It was not a peace that was found in perfection. Jesus' peace is found in connection. It's not a peace of perfection. It is a peace found in connection. Realizing and recognizing I am always already imperfect. That is true. But in the same breath that I recognize and realize I'm not perfect, in that same breath, I recognize and realize that God is, and God resides and dwells even within me at that moment. The world says peace comes when you know everything is happening just the way you want it. And Jesus says, no. My peace is the kind of peace you have in the world while you're in trouble, while there's no peace, while there's chaos. Jesus, he affirms this. He tells his disciples, you will have trouble. Things will not be perfect for you. You know what this means? I know it's hard for a pastor to say this. That understanding of God's peace, unfortunately, means some people will not survive cancer diagnosis. Some people's children will not be safe perpetually. The peace God offers shows us that even in the world of imperfections, sometimes those imperfections are necessary because they put our mind towards the things of God. Sometimes it's good to go through tough times. You went through all that stuff, all that crap, but say, I'm better for it. I went through a divorce. I'm a better husband for it. I moved 1,000 miles away from my kids. I'm a better father for it, right? I challenged my faith of old that believed in all these radically wrong ideas about God and got ostracized by a Christian community that I trusted and loved. But guess what? I'm a better pastor for it. Sometimes it's good to go through chaos so you can recognize what true peace is, what true freedom is. So what is it? Well, point number 3. Peace isn't something you got to wait for. It's something you have to choose to walk in. Peace is not, I hope the government makes good decisions and legislations and laws that make everybody peaceful. Ain't gonna happen. Peace is even with the chaos around me. I'm not gonna wait for it to subside. I'm gonna walk in the peace that God promises me right now. You don't wait for it. How many guys like waiting? Anybody? Take a quick survey. Anybody love waiting in traffic? Yeah? Anybody love waiting in the grocery line, the self-checkout? I just want to know when I became an employee of Walmart. Like, that's really my question. Like, I'm scanning it, I'm bagging it. I'm like, where's my pay? Do I get paid by the hour, by the item for this, you know? How many guys love waiting for your DoorDash pizza to be delivered the next day? Like, that's crazy, right? How many guys love waiting for your spouse to get ready, sorry babe, to go out to dinner? She's gonna kill me after this. I'm creating chaos, right? Or worse, how many guys love waiting for your spouse to decide where to actually eat dinner, right? That's the hard one. Humans and waiting's not our strong suit. Listen to what neuropsychologist, her name is Mary Fessenden, listen to what she says. This will blow your mind. She says, going slow and waiting drives us crazy. Our brains have evolved to hate waiting. So we simply have sped the world up. We have thus created this vicious cycle. Expecting things to happen quickly makes us impatient. And when things take longer, we get angry. And when we get angry, this makes it seem like the things are taking forever, even longer. We are all just getting faster and more filled with rage. What? She's right, and that's not in the Bible, by the way. Let me say this. If you're waiting for God to simply drop peace onto you, in all of my experience, in all of my education and study, very rarely does that happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but what I am saying is that any promise God makes to us, a promise of peace, a promise of freedom, a promise of strength, whatever it is, here's what I want to say. God's promises are not for the giving out. They are for the living out. So if you want patience, you can't just get on your knees and beg God, oh, give me patience with my children, I'm gonna kill them. It's that very feeling of wanting to kill them where patience can be walked out, where patience can be lived and not just simply gived. Does that make sense? That's what God is calling you to do. Listen to what Luke says, Luke chapter 1. He's talking about the arrival of John the Baptist. He says, and because of the tender mercy of God, by which the rising of the sun comes to us from heaven and to shine on those living, he will guide our feet into the path of peace. Notice it doesn't say the path to peace. It is the path of peace. If it's a path to peace, then peace is somewhere over there that I've got to get to. I've got to try to make it to it. I've got to do enough good deeds. I've got to try to pray more and give more because I'm on this path to peace. No. It's a path of peace that God gives you. Because peace is not something that is out there. It is something that is always already in here that doesn't have to be given out. It has to be lived out. God's peace is not a win-then peace. It's not a one-day, someday peace. It's not a fairy tale Beauty and the Beast peace. It's not a when I send my kids off to college peace. It's not when I have $1 million in my 401k peace. It's not when I get married or I find the right spouse for my life peace. It's not even a when my in-laws finally leave for Christmas peace. It is a path of peace. That means this, that every step I take, God is with me. Every move I make, I'm not waiting on peace, I'm walking in it. That's the kind of peace that God wants. And guess what? Sometimes when I walk, I trip. And there are going to be people in your life as you're trying to walk this path of peace. You know what they're watching you to do? They're watching you to see if you trip. They're watching to see, oh, there's Troy, Mr. Preacher, Pastor. And you trip. Told you he's going to mess it up. You know what I say? Keep walking. Keep walking. I'm going through chaos in my life right now, but I'm a living testimony to go, even the chaos around me, I'm going to walk in this peace. I'm going to walk in this peace because it's not given out, it's living out what God has promised me. Keep walking. Point number 4 of peace is this. Oftentimes, it's the chaos of our time, not the peace, that reveals the conqueror in the individual. It is often the chaos of the time that reveals who the conqueror is inside of you. You guys remember the story? There's this woman in John chapter 8. She's got this issue of bleeding. Her whole life, she's just had this bleeding problem, and she sees Jesus walking by, and she jostles her way, forces her way through the crowd, and she touches the hem of Jesus' garment, the little tassel on his prayer shawl. And Jesus turns and he goes, hey, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. Notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, oh, your faith in me has healed you. You repeating this prayer after this pastor healed you. You believing all the right doctrines and creeds healed you. No, he says, your faith, your action, you're living it, you're walking in it, you jostling through and maneuvering through that crowd, fighting your way to get what you need to get, and doing what was necessary healed you. Sometimes your greatest healing, your greatest peace, your greatest freedom is found on the way to where you think you're going, and it happens like that. It's your action. Here's the truth about the universe. I don't know if you have, I love physics, I love science. Energy is always measured by motion. And you know what the enemy of faith is? You know what the enemy of peace is? You know what the enemy of trust is? Is sitting on your laurels, waiting for something to change, waiting for something to happen, waiting for something to come to you instead of you walking out in it. And sometimes that walking out in it is gonna be chaotic. You think moving to Florida, 1,200 miles from my children, was just all peaceful? I cried most of the 17 hours to get here. Chaos. But I stayed in that peace, knowing that God called me here, that I heard the voice of God to say, go there. There's work to do here. I want you to think about this. These famous quotes that all of us probably will recognize. I don't want you to think about who said it. I want you to think about where it came from and the chaos surrounding these individuals that called the conqueror out of them. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Who said that? FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt. What was the economic system of the United States at that time? Depression, right? Economically depression. He said, this is gonna create fear and chaos and confusion. I have to address it. It was the chaos of that time that rose the conqueror within him. What about this one? I have a dream that one day little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. Who said that? Martin Luther King Jr. What was the time for people of color in America at that time? You think it was all peaceful? There were water fountains saying, if you're colored, go here. If you're white, go here. And that was just status quo. But the chaos of the time allowed the conqueror in the individual to rise up. Chaos isn't all that bad. Sometimes the chaos is necessary to reveal who you truly are and who God truly is inside of you. Here's the last one. Become the change you want to see in the world. That was Mahatma Gandhi in the political uprising in India. Sometimes it's the chaos that's already within you that can bring about the peace needed around you. And the truth of peace is actually found in the word shalom. So can I teach for a little bit? Like here. So shalom, if you know Hebrew, it's read from right to left. So this is the Hebrew letter Shem. And then Shem means literally to conquer. So it's not just the word, but the symbol means it's like teeth, like you conquer something by the grit of your teeth. Then you have, this is the word or the letter Lamed. And Lamed was a shape of like a shepherd's staff, right? And so this gave the shepherd a type of authority. And then you have this is the Vav. So Vav is a letter in Hebrew that connects. So anything, it's a connection. And then lastly, you have, which is called Mem. And this is where we get it looks like a wave. So waters, but what were the waters like in Genesis 1? The waters of chaos, right? Chaos and confusion. So you could say water or literally chaos. And so this word is shalom, which means peace. And this is the peace Jesus is talking about. So it's found not only in the word shalom, but in each individual letter. Shalom is the conqueror in you that you give authority to connect over the chaos around you. Peace is something you walk in. It's something you choose. Peace never comes to you in your time of comfort and convenience. Peace always comes when? When do you need it? I don't need peace when I got a Corona on Siesta Beach. It's there. We need peace when you're struggling for visitation with an ex, right? Peace is when your child is sneaking out at night and you got to do something about it. And I'll say this, correct them, don't try to perfect them. Does that make sense? Because if you try to perfect them, you will never have peace. Peace is something that is revealed in chaos. That changed. I'm preaching to myself today because we need peace in our life. Some of you are going through stuff right now and you're like, I just need peace. You have it. It's already there. It's already within. Choose to walk it out. But you don't know what they said about me. You know what they did to me. God does. Choose to walk in it. It's already been given. Now make the choice to start living. That's peace. Can I pray for you, Suncoast? Let me pray for you. God, I pray for my friends. I pray for my community that this idea of peace and the character of the Prince of Peace that resides within us would come alive and be lived out, not just in Christmas, but every day of our life. And God, when we stumble, let us get back up. And when the dark side wants to conquer the light inside of us, still let our light shine, God. Let us be peacemakers in this world. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Stand with me, Suncoast. I want to tell you a quick story before I let you go. There was this wealthy man, very wealthy. And his wife died giving birth to their only child, a son. And he raised this boy as best he could by himself. But he had this love of art. He loved art. He loved all the masters, Picasso and Degas and Monet. And he shared that love and that passion of art with his kid, with his son. They'd go to galleries and they would collect art and buy art and put it up in their home, and they'd drink tea and observe the different art and interpretations. And then World War II broke out and his son was drafted, went to war. Father was upset by himself, and just a few months later, he got word that his son was killed in battle. Devastated him. And one day, there was a knock at the door, and the old man answers the door, and there's this young man with a crutch, and he's holding a gift in his hand. And he goes, "Can I help you, son?" He goes, "Yes, sir." He goes, "I knew your son. I was stationed with him. I was there with him the day he died. And he told me about your love of art. He told me about the collection you have. He told me about all the things you did." And he goes, "I want to present this gift to you." And the old man opens it up. And in a frame, it's just this painting of his son's picture, his son's face. And he goes, "I painted this picture of your son for you because I know how devastating it must have been to lose him." Man, the old man cried. He put that picture on his mantle in his sitting room, and every day he drank his coffee, and he'd look at this painting of his son that his friend made of him. One day, the old man died, and there was a fury of chaos amongst the art community because this guy had all sorts of priceless pieces from Picasso and Monet and Degas. And all of these people were coming because there was going to be an auction of this man's, lifelong collection of these masterpieces. And all these people just crowded around, and the auctioneer gets up and he goes, "All right, guys, we're going to start the auction." He goes, "Let's start with this." And he pulls the painting of the man's son. He goes, "This looks like a self-portrait or a portrait of a young man. Who will give me $1,000? People are like, we don't want that. Let's go to the Picassos. Go to the Monets. Where's the Degas? Where's the ballerinas? Okay, 500. Anyone give me 500 for this?" There was still an uproar, just like, what are we doing? It's a picture of this guy's son. Who cares? Anyone give me $50? And in the back, we heard, "I'll give you $50 for it." And everybody turns. All of these elite art collectors, these wealthy people turn. And it was a man who was just covered in dirt and overalls. He goes, "I got $50. He goes, that was the old man's son. I knew him. I'm the old man. I was his gardener. And I knew how much he loved his son." He goes, "I'll take it, $50. He walks up and he pays the auctioneer. The auctioneer takes his gavel and goes, "This auction's over. Everyone dismissed." And everybody's like, "What are you talking about? We haven't even got to the good stuff." The old man opens up this legal envelope and he reads, "During the auction, please auction my son's painting first. And whoever takes that gets the rest." You are that child of God. God is that old man. And you are more precious to God than any other masterpiece that we think or give value to. You are God's son. You are God's daughter. And let that peace of God, knowing that you are always already loved, even in the midst of chaos, resonate in your hearts and minds today, Suncoast. Go in peace. Love you guys. Have a good one.